Hello everybody and welcome back to the Durham Student YouTube channel. Today I am here with a video about all things budgeting at uni. So I know that before I came to uni I was really clueless about how to budget. I had had a couple of part-time jobs and had to allocate my money, but that was generally saving up for going on holiday with my friends and was really different to actually having to manage a budget for day-to-day expenses. So budgeting at uni can really vary depending on whether you're in catered or self-catered accommodation and whether you're living in college or living out, because obviously this can vary the cost of your accommodation and the cost of your food. But there are a few basics that everyone kind of needs to know and that will be useful to know before you come to uni, because it can be really hard to know what to expect before you arrive. So the first thing to do, and I would recommend you do this before you come to uni because you will just not remember to do it and not find the time to do it when you get here. I would sit down with your family or, with whoever is supporting you in your uni decisions at home, and create a bit of a plan about what to do in terms of budgeting when you arrive at uni, and just kind of have a think about what potential expenses you'll have. So I would do this sort of after results day when you know where you're going but before you arrive. And so this plan would include how much you're expecting your college accommodation to cost. If you are catered in college, obviously that would include all your food and you've got less variability with it. But if you're not catered, consider how much food you need to eat. So as someone who eats probably, I'd say, a medium amount of food, I spend about £25 a week on average. Can be less than that quite easily, but I do like to eat nicely. So yeah, that still works out significantly cheaper than food in college accommodation if you're trying to weigh up those options. So you need to sit down and kind of figure out how much you're going to spend on food, how much you're going to be spending on other things. So these other things can include things like textbooks, nights out, clothes, toiletries. If you have any regular prescription medication, like I did when I came here, you obviously need to consider the quite expensive prescription charges that you might need to pay, and travel, for example, if you're going to be visiting home. So I don't live too far away, so it could be like £10 to £30 return depending on how soon I book it. But I know for other people, particularly if you're living down in the south of the UK or if you're living abroad, it can be a lot more expensive to travel home. So you need to obviously budget travel costs into your plan. The next thing to do is to consider, if you get a student loan, how much student loan you get and how this weighs up against the expenses that you have. Obviously, depending on whether you are a UK student or an international student, you may or may not have different student loans and bursaries. And so you need to kind of figure out how much money you're actually going to have. And then if any relatives are supporting you, how much money you might have there, and then see sort of where this leaves you. So if you are finding that you are going to be short of money, there can be bursaries within the university. So for example, there are bursaries for low income families where you can get some money off. There are academic bursaries. There are obviously a limited number of some of these, but it's really worth looking into. You might be able to get them for sports, music and different things. And then the other option, and the option that I went for, was to get a part-time job at uni. I have had part-time jobs in both my first and second year, and I probably will do in my third year as well. The thing is, without a part-time job, I probably could manage, but I would have to be a lot more stringent, and I would rather just do a few hours of work a week, get some work experience, and then be able to just live a little more comfortably. There are so many part-time jobs on campus and around Durham, and I have done a whole video about part-time jobs which should be up on the student YouTube channel soon, and talking about the different types of jobs you can get. But whether it's working in your college bar or toasty bar, or working out in a cafe in town like I did in first year, you have a whole variety of options to bring in some extra income, and you can earn quite a lot of money this way depending on how many hours you work. For example, last year I was working about 8 hours a week, but sometimes could be working longer than that, and this was really manageable alongside first year studies. Based on these things that you need to consider, you kind of come up with your plan of action. But obviously when you get here, things are expensive when you come into the real world, and you obviously are going to have had plenty of experience buying stuff and going out before. But I think sometimes it can be difficult to see how things stack up until you get to uni. If beforehand, your parents have just bought even the general things like toiletries and food, you would be surprised, as I was, for example, how much prescriptions and things can cost. So there are a number of tips that you can use to help reduce your costs. The first thing that I would recommend, and this is my holy grail go-to day-to-day saving tip, everyone loves a hot drink, a tea or a coffee, and it's so easy to spend so much money in the cafes on the university campus. But rather than spending money in cafes, which can work out probably £2 to £3 for every drink you buy, and if you want to do that on the regular, super pricey, that can stack up to £15 a week or more so quickly. And so if you just bring along your own to-go cup, which A, is better for the environment, and B, this is just a good plan. You bring along your to-go cup, you bring along some tea bags or some coffee in a little tub, and you make your own coffees with the hot water taps that there are all over some of the study buildings in campus. So in our brand new teaching and learning centre, which is a gorgeous study building, may I add, there are multiple hot water taps on all of the different floors, and you can just go up and make yourself a tea anytime you like. So what I do is I go and buy boxes of tea bags that come in paper sachets, so you can recycle the sachets. But for example, last week I spent £5.50 and bought 80 tea bags. So for £5.50, the cost of 2 hot drinks on campus, I am going to get 80 teas. Incredible, right? You get so many more drinks for the same amount of money. And so I just go make my herbal teas at the tea machine. Obviously, if you like milky drinks, you can just bring some milk with you. One of my housemates always does this, just bring some milk in a jar. Again, really easy way to just transport some milk with you without it being unsustainable. The next tip is to save data by using the free Wi-Fi on campus. Phone contracts are obviously really expensive, and if you have a really high-priced phone contract, that can use up a lot of money. Instead, I'd recommend getting a cheaper one, and a lot of companies, you can get them along with your home broadband. So I think my phone contract costs £5 a month, and I get a decent amount of data and everything. But it's plenty because I can just use the free Wi-Fi on campus or when I'm at home, and to be honest, half the time I'm between the two anyway, so there aren't that many times when I actually need to use my data, and I find that I end up with most of it left every month anyway. The next thing is to use your student discount code. So everyone that has a university email address can sign up for Uniday's student discount, and they just provide student discount in so many different stores, and you can save a lot of money because it can often be up to 25% off, and that actually saves you a surprising amount, particularly if you're buying clothes and shoes and things. But also going out to restaurants, bear in mind that a lot of places do offer student discount, so that can be really good. The next thing is to use library books instead of textbooks. So, you get the textbooks in the library. So for example, for my course, especially in first year, I had bought a lot of textbooks, and it's common to spend upwards of £200 on textbooks, depending on what type of subjects you're using. But for example, for business, they actually have 30 copies of every textbook in the library that's a compulsory textbook, and if you just go and do the reading straight after the lecture, there's going to be a textbook there always is. And actually I haven't found that much of a need to have my own copies of the textbook, particularly in second year. I have barely even touched my textbooks, so for the amount of money that I spent on them, it wasn't really worth it. But on a similar note, if you do want to buy textbooks, because I know I do like having the physical copies, and in first year I did use them quite a lot, there are so many ways to save money when buying textbooks. So I bought so many of mine secondhand on eBay, or found deals on them on Amazon and used discount codes. So I saved so much money on textbooks. And at the end of the year, especially if you have custom textbooks. So I had a couple of custom textbooks in first year, which is when the lecturers pick different chapters from different textbooks, and these ones are harder to get online, so you buy them in the university bookshop. But if you have these, you can sell them back to Waterstones at the end of the year, and they'll either give you 30% of the price back in cash or 40% back in Waterstones vouchers. Another thing is to plan your meals so you don't waste food. So if you are going to be cooking your own food, plan what you're going to do so that you don't end up throwing loads of stuff away, because food waste is one of the easiest ways where you could have saved money. You know, if you like buy a packet of food and it goes off and you spent £2 on it and you didn't use it, that's £2 that you could have spent on something else. So it is worth only trying to buy what you need, and for the planet as well, trying to minimize food waste as much as possible. Also, another way to save money is to plan where you're going to buy your food, and also to pick own brand options. Branded food is so expensive, and as a marketing student, I know that half the time it's literally the same thing inside it. So don't bother opting for branded food. It will literally probably taste the same as the own brand stuff, and you can probably half the price of your shop by picking own brand options. Tesco, Aldi, Lidl, they all have own brand options, and it is so much cheaper. Also, using a student rail card, so a 16 to 25 rail card in the UK, is a massive way to save money. So I never realised when I signed up for it. I signed up for mine almost 3 years ago now, and you can buy a 3-year rail card, so it's coming up to renewal time for me. But it costs £70 for a 3-year rail card, or £30 a year. And whilst that might seem expensive in the first place, you save so much money. So for example, recently I've been having to go to loads of assessment centres and things, and they tell you very last minute, and the train tickets can be so incredibly expensive. And so for example, like a last minute train ticket from Durham to London could have cost me £150, and it will cost me £100. Now granted, a lot of companies reimburse your expenses, but only up to a certain value, and if you don't have the rail card, it could easily exceed that, and I have probably saved the money of my rail card 5 times over. So it is incredibly useful to get one of these, and especially like for example for international students who maybe have to travel down to London to get their flights home. You will save so much money if you just buy a rail card in the start. It is worth the investment. Buy a 3-year one, it lasts the length of your degree. It's perfect. So yes, all in all, keep tracking what you're spending as you go along, because you will need to adjust your budget. The budget I made before I came to uni was so excessive, and I did not need nearly as much as money as I thought I did, because it is so much easier to save money than you think, and you will probably not need to spend as much on food as you might first expect. But definitely try and keep on top of all of these little things, and you will be able to save more money than you could imagine. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and if you want any more videos from us, just comment down below and we will see you next time. Bye guys.